Here's Paul writing a letter to the church of Philippians at Philippi, and he's explaining these different churches. We've referred to this earlier in our devotionals, that Paul was really good at locating a church, their kind of situation that they were in financially or physically. Corinth was known as a church of being very prosperous, and yet they were sick all the time. And yet churches like Philippi and churches like Macedonia, they were people that didn't have as much wealth, but they never got sick. They were always healed. And so you see some things in the writings of Paul where he's talking about these different churches and the challenges they face. And many theologians believe the reason that the Corinth church was so sickly because even though they had a lot of wealth, they weren't generous people. These other churches were very generous. So here's what he writes in Philippians 4. You Philippians well know, and you can be sure I'll never forget it. Notice this, that when I first left Macedonia province, venturing out with the message, this message, not one church helped out in the give and take of this work except you. You're the only one. Even while I was in Thessalonica, you helped out, and not only once, but twice. So not only did they send him a care package, not only did they send him an offering once, but they sent him an offering twice. And he says, not that I'm looking for handouts, but I do want you to experience the blessing that issues from generosity. I think that's the issue here. The blessing, the issue of the blessing comes from generosity. You and I have already, we've already had experiences, compliments of God's blessings. If God wanted that for you, He wants that for others as well. And just like God has done extraordinary things in our lives through His generosity, He used someone to reach out to you to bless you. Then God wants in turn for us to do the same for others. We can allow God to do extraordinary things in the lives of others through us. And so when that occurs, transformation happens in us. This is why Jesus said it's more blessed to give than to receive. That word blessed there means happy. You're going to be happier to give than you are going to receive. And I know that's almost counterintuitive. We don't feel like that's the case, but it's really true, because not only does the transformation take place in the life of the person that you're generous to, but it also takes a greater place. Transformation is greater in you. So let's take a minute to think about this. Your generosity brings life into dangerous places where death has a grip. God's generosity of giving His Son enabled Jesus to storm the gates of death, to storm the gates of hell and the grave, to free us from its chains. Well, look at your generous giving differently, starting today. God wants you to go in and rip death, rip hell, rip the grave, rip despair from other people's lives. Here's your next move. Do you recognize that when you give, God transforms your life too?